Awesome. We are live. Hello, everyone. I am super excited. I have on a very, very cool guest today. His name is Tim Parlatore. He is the founder of the Parlatore Group. And he is really he hires a lot of military spouses at his firm. And I'm going to let him talk about that. But Tim, why don't you give us a little bit of background about who you are and about your firm? And then we'll jump in and have our conversation today.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Jamie. So my name is Tim Parlatore, and I'm the founder and managing partner of Parlatore Group. This is a firm that I founded a few years ago. I'm a Navy veteran myself. I worked in criminal defense and civil litigation in New York City for a number of years. And then I founded this firm based on a cloud-based principle where every single one of my people works remotely. And allows me to really create a pretty good dispersed team across the country. So we have almost 30 attorneys at this point, and they are spread across the country and really across the globe, because a lot of my people are able to work in locations that don't necessarily match where their licenses are. So we have people in Hawaii, we have people in Japan, and all across the lower 48 states.
That's amazing. So military spouses have a lot of problems when it comes to relocating state to state. Attorneys especially, there's a whole group for that, the MSJDN folks, which I believe you're intimately acquainted with. Can you talk a little bit about your team and if there are any challenges that you see among your ranks with that relocation and taking the bar exam and all of that stuff? Or has your cloud-based model kind of made up for that problem?
Well, and that's one of the big problems that military spouse attorneys have faced traditionally, is that all licensing for attorneys is state by state. And so when you move to another state, you have to apply to get a license there. MSJDN is an organization that's done tremendous work of being able to get reciprocity. So when you move from one state to another, instead of having to sit for the bar exam again, you can get reciprocity, you get at least a temporary license in the state while you're there. But the problem that a lot of these spouses faced was then, how do you get a job? Because you go into an employer, you say, hey, I've got a license, it's about 5 minutes old, and I'm moving in 2 years. Do you want to hire me? And so, what we've been able to do is kind of bridge that gap and give these people an opportunity to join a firm that they can take with them wherever they go. With the exception of litigators who go to court on a regular basis, most transactional attorneys, intellectual property attorneys, they can practice from anywhere. The American Bar Association recently did an ethics opinion on this exact issue that does say you can practice from anywhere. So if you have a New York license and you're practicing in New York and you meet all of your clients on Zoom and everything, you can run a New York-based practice while sitting on the beach of Hawaii, which I have people that do.
Unmuting myself. Sorry, I get really wiggly when we do these interviews, and so my chair squeaks. I try to mute myself while you're talking so people don't pay attention to what I'm doing over here. All right, so let's talk about the Parlatore Group. Tell us,
Sure.
The punchline, what does your firm even do? What kind of services do you provide?
We provide full service legal representation for entrepreneurs, small to mid-sized businesses, and individuals. So we have the full spectrum that you would ordinarily only get at a large firm, that, everything from intellectual property, corporate contracts, tax, employment, litigation, criminal defense, all of it under one, virtual roof. And by getting rid of the building requirements that most firms do, I'm also getting rid of all that overhead so that you can actually afford to have that full spectrum services, where normally if you go to a firm that does the scope of work that we do, you're going to have to pay $1,000 an hour for that firm. So, really we handle everything. If you're an entrepreneur with an idea, we can handle everything from the inception of that to, protecting your idea, incorporating your business, figuring out, how to get funding, whether it's an SBA loan or venture capital or investors, all the way through building it, negotiating your contracts, making sure your employment policies are good. If you have any litigation, handling that. And so everything from a person with an idea in their garage up to a multi-million-dollar corporation, we can handle that entire, that entire process of growth.
It's amazing, which is why we're speaking today, is because in the world I live in, where we deal with a lot of military spouses that are business owners and entrepreneurs, this is something that we need. We need somebody that can handle from A to Z all of our business needs if we need to turn to a legal firm. So I appreciate all that you're doing. Clarification questions. You can serve anyone from anywhere in the United States, correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're expanding. We're growing at a rate of 1 to 3 attorneys a month at this point. So if you look on our website, there's a contact page with a map of the U.S. that has where all of our licenses are, and that map is growing, weekly. And so, we have the ability to, to represent people nationwide.
Amazing. And so, a question about your own legal specialization. Your background isn't particularly in the business space. Let's talk about what you specialize in as Tim.
Oh, me? Yeah, you don't want me doing your business law. I'm the lawyer that you only call when you want to get into a really big and ugly courtroom fight. Yeah, that's my specialty, is big ugly fights. So, whether it's civil litigation or criminal defense, that's where I specialize.
I hope I never have to call you specifically for any reason.
Well, it's nice because when you get into the fights that I get into, the clients obviously, form a loyalty, through that fight, and then they want me to do all their other, work, which is not what I do, but I have a team that can handle that. And, there's a lot of times when clients come to me and they think that it's going to be an ugly problem, and I'm all gearing up for the fight. And this happened earlier today with a client where, very quickly it turned to, okay, we're not going to get into a fight. We've changed things around. And so now I'm going to direct you over to my team here, because instead of going in for litigation, instead we're going to do it as a licensing deal and have everybody actually grow from the experience. So it's nice having that scope, because ultimately, my goal is to help clients to grow and to build longer term relationships, whereas these smaller firms are only focusing on a very small problem, and they want to just, screw into that one problem. And, obviously, like the situation I mentioned from earlier today, if things change from a litigation to a licensing deal, the litigation firm is getting fired and another firm is going to get hired. So, with us, I prefer to be able to give that comprehensive solution to people.
That's awesome. And it saves everyone a lot of headache if they can just keep it in-house. We have a comment from Erin, and she says, states like Virginia require a supervising attorney to practice. I'm a military spouse attorney headed to Okinawa, licensed in Kentucky, and she's very interested to learn about your firm. I think you've probably heard that story before, huh?
Oh, I have. One of my big jobs is in recruiting for the firm. And so we have, a great team. So we do have people that do have licenses that could provide the supervision as needed. And, we have 2 people in Okinawa right now. One is California licensed, one is Nebraska licensed. So it is not necessarily, I don't want to say that this is the firm for every lawyer. You have to have a certain, mindset to be a part of our team. And, so I kind of go through that in the recruiting process to make sure we have good quality people here with the right entrepreneurial mindset. But, anybody, who's interested in that, we certainly are always hiring and looking to expand.
And Erin, if you're still watching, I put a link to the Parlatore Group in the video description. So you're welcome to go poke around the website and explore any of their hiring processes or anything like that, just FYI. And if you're watching now or later and you have questions for Tim, drop them in the comments and make sure you tag me or him. That way we are able to see your question after the video is over, and we'll do our best to answer it. Tim, I had a question specifically. Now, this is a surprise. I didn't ask you this earlier, but there was a an executive order that was published in December of 2020, and it just had this tiny snippet about military spouses, which I believe is relevant to the attorneys. And it was about, what's this whole executive order called? Increasing Economic and Geographic Mobility was the title of the executive order. And it talks about reducing regulatory burdens placed on the American people. And then it specifically talks about lowering consumer costs, increasing economic and geographic mobility, including for military spouses. And so when we think about the military spouse attorneys, specifically moving state to state, taking the bar exam, does something like this executive order actually help? Or is it a big, long process that might take a decade to seep in?
There are certain industries that are regulated differently than others, and the practice of law is very heavily regulated by the states. So certainly something like this helps in motivating the states to enact better policies and better procedures. I think that order certainly helps out a lot of our clients and a lot of your members in being able to move around better, and it really it incentivizes the states to, hey, if there is some kind of licensing requirement, make it more portable.
Well, it makes sense. We're in 2021, the world of Zoom meetings and virtual companies that have no building. Why is it so hard to move across state lines? So,
right.
All right. I have a final kind of thing I want to talk about. Tim and his powerhouse team of military spouse attorneys, for the folks that are members of the Military Spouse Chamber, we had a lot of inquiries right after we launched on January 1st of people expressing concerns of, I'm a military spouse business owner, and every time I PCS, I have to re-register my business across state lines. So all of this comes full circle. And Tim's attorneys have so graciously offered to give their legal expertise and do some sort of a workshop focused on, doing the right thing, figuring out what to do with it's complicated address problem. Tim, do you mind just talking very briefly? I mean, the 40,000-foot high-level overview. What are your tips for a mobile military spouse business on the move?
Well, I mean, you want to establish kind of a home base, but it doesn't have to be a physical address. For example, if you look at my business card, it says One World Trade Center, 85th floor in Lower Manhattan. I'm actually sitting right outside of Washington, D.C., and I can practice out of that address from anywhere. So I have that mailbox there, and so no matter where I move or where I am, that's always constant. So that's one tip. But as far as getting licensed or getting registered in other states, it's not that difficult of a process. And we have people that really that specialize in advising people how to do that, because the traditional way of doing business of all these brick and mortar shops is in large part dying. And, the newer club-based models are coming up. And it's one of the interesting things about the past year with the pandemic, that it's actually kind of fueled and accelerated this transition that was already in play. And just made it even more advanced with a lot of the supporting technologies and everything.
It's amazing. Well, we're certainly interested in the wisdom coming from your team. There's been so many expressed concerns just since we launched on the 1st of insurance. It's really complicated when I'm a military spouse and I live here and my employees all live in all these other states because they're also military spouses. What do we do about insurance? What do we do about taxes? How do we hire people? HR is a pain, when you have people in multiple states. And so we're interested, especially in hearing about your, what do we do when we move our business, when we physically move? And so we're excited to have that. I'll be sending more details out through the email in the Military Spouse Chamber. So if you're one of our members and you want to sign up for that workshop, keep an eye out for your email and you'll see more details about the event as we plan it later. And Tim, I want to thank you so much for your time and for for coming on today and just talking about what you do and all the spouses that you employ and how you help business owners. So I appreciate you. Is there anything else, any last words of wisdom you want to leave with us today?
No, just thank you for having me. And, what you were just talking about with having, all these employees across all these states, not only do we advise people on that, but I do it, in addition to all of the attorneys, which is, you can read about them on the website. The firm is also built on a backbone of our support staff, accounting, marketing, and admin. And our back office, support staff is 100% military spouse. And so I have dealt with employees that are PCSing all over the place and moving, where all of the employment is and taxes and everything else. So we have experience in that, both as attorneys and as clients.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. And we're excited to have you come out and teach a workshop for us, Tim. Thanks again for your time today, and everyone else. Again, if you have questions, drop them in the comments and make sure you tag us later. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.